Hello, and happy Kindred Knits knit along kickoff launch date. I'm gonna chat about the knit along. Today is the official start of the knit along. Hello to everyone, and feel free to pop in questions and comments in the comment box below, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the knit along as it's officially starting today. Well, I'm going to be knitting during the knit along, and I thought it'd be fun to walk through all of the patterns in Kindred Knits that you can knit during the knit along, give you a little bit of some ideas about the construction, just kind of like an overview of it, some yarn suggestions, though I will recommend there is a amazing Instagram live that I did with Millie of Tribe Yarns. That was back in November, last month I think, and we went through a whole bunch of yarn ideas before she left to row solo across the Atlantic, which she's doing right now, which is insane and amazing. And I'm addicted to watching the updates on that. But we'll just kind of go through the book. I'm going to try and keep on top. I'm not going to add anyone. I know a couple of you have requested to join. I'm not, only because I'm slightly concerned about the tech gods here on Instagram. So I'm going to walk through just on here. But if you are new, hello. Oh, already I'm doing the Backdated socks, and we'll have my amazing, your first Rosy knitting experience. Yes, so all of the patterns, I'm going to walk through all of them today. So whether you've already picked a project or maybe you're on the fence about a few, we'll kind of chat about some of the different patterns, some of the techniques that are used. But I have loads of tutorial videos which are all on my website as well as on YouTube. I generally say check them out on my website because you can filter by technique and they're all split up. So if you're doing the Backdated socks, which someone said they're gonna do these lovely socks, do not feel panicked. You can absolutely do it. Everything, all the techniques that I like to use in my patterns are deceptively easy. So you just need to know how to knit and purl, and I will help you with some tutorial videos to get you sorted on that. Hi Liz! So many of you saying hi, it's so nice. This will be saved so you'll be able to watch it back and comment on there as well with any questions too. So yeah, let's get started. So if you haven't heard about the knit along, it starts today and is ending on March 22nd. So we'll be knitting any of the patterns in my latest book, Kindred Knits. You can knit one, you can knit two, however many you want to knit. It's going to be very relaxed. I'm kind of being ambitious I have two patterns in mind. I've already cast on one, partly because I wanted to be able to show you something, and I need to be a little bit prepared. So yeah, I've cast on one out of two that I would like to do. But this is going to be fun, relaxed. This is the one time I'll be doing an Instagram live for this. We will have 2 Zoom sessions, which will also be recorded for those of you taking part in the knit along, plus 4 amazing prizes, 3 from yarn brands that I worked with on the book. So Sonder Yarn Company, Crafty Jacks, as well as John Arbon Textiles. They're offering some lovely gift cards, and then an amazing prize from the Australian brand Strucket. It's an amazing blocking tool, and I don't have it because I'm joining you from my parents' house, which you will get to see today with my illustrations up here at the top. This is the kind of craft room. So yeah, let's jump in. I'm gonna go through all the patterns in the book. I'm gonna try and do it in the order the patterns are in the book, partly because it's a little bit easier for me. And I've already put on the kitty sweater, which is the first one in here. So I'm going to walk through all the patterns. Feel free to ask questions. I'll give you some ideas of yarn suggestions, but there's so many yarns in the world that you can go wild. So we'll run through the patterns because I haven't really properly done it myself because I've been on the move so much. But I hope all of you have had a lovely holiday season so far, and we get to do some selfish knitting for ourselves now, hopefully. So we're going to start off with the first pattern in the book, which is the Giddy sweater. Hi Alison! Yeah, I know, I'm really excited for Alison's Giddy because I saw her, I kind of helped influence her on yarn choices, which I love doing. I'm very excited for yours, Alison. So yeah, I have on the Giddy, which I know some of you are going to be doing. A couple of my knitting friends are on here, so like Alison. And then I've got a friend in Bath, Harriet, who's also doing one. She's kind of already started, so if you've already started a project, you can still join the knit along. You don't have to start today. You can start with a partly done project, so we're just going to knit together and have fun. So the Giddy sweater, this is the one on the book and the cornflower blue, and I'll try and stand up. Let's hope that my camera angle is not too bad. This is the same one, but in same yarns. I just swapped out the color order, so it's burgundy base with the blue and the light gray for the rosy minute inlay. This is a really fun knit, and there's a lot of different things you can do for customizing it to your kind of choice. So it is a kind of take on a top-down raglan sweater, a nice classic, but we have, just because I like a little bit of detail, just a little bit here, so running along all of your raglan seams, so it kind of makes fun of those like faux seams there. So along all of the raglan, so in between you've got your increases on either side of the stripe where you've got your rosy minute inlay. This is done in 2 contrast colors, and then just to carry it on, we have it down the body, so on the side for like a faux seam. And this one's nice, so it's a worsted weight. It's done on primarily a US 4.5 millimeter needle, so a nice fairly quick knit. It's top down in the round, seamless. You just have a very small section that is done flat before you join, so just to shape that front neck. And this is done all in a worsted weight. You can play around with your yarns, so let's say I use Gepard Woolia, which is a really nice lightweight worsted weight yarn. It's very airy, but if you want a little bit of fluff in your life, I know many of you do, you can hold 2 strands together for that kind of main color, which I like to sometimes call with my inlaid patterns kind of the canvas color. So you could do something like a DK held with silk mohair, and then the inlay is done with 2 strands. Try and hold this up close so you can see 2 strands of worsted. So this is all done with the same yarn, but you can play around. The contrast colors you don't need a ton of, so if you've got stuff in stash, some leftovers kicking about, maybe some minis or half skeins, great use for that. So that is worsted weight held double, so 2 strands together. With the inlay, if you prefer not having 2 strands, you can always use a single strand of a thicker weight. So this is all worsted. So if you want to do a single strand for your inlay, I would recommend for this one a bulky weight. So if you've got some bulky kicking about, you can do that. And what's nice, and I will say when we get to the patterns that I am doing for my knit along projects, the patterns that I write, you can use that as a guideline. I've basically done the maths for you, but you can be creative in terms of how many colors you want to use and the types of yarns you want to use. So I've got 3 colors here, so main color and 2 contrast colors. You can simplify that down to just 1 contrast color, or if you're using this as kind of like a stash busting project, so I have a friend, she's not able to join us tonight, but we'll be sharing loads of photos in the Ravelry chat, and I will probably be posting a bunch here on Instagram too for inspiration. But she's using actually 3 contrast colors, so she's using some bits that she's got in stash, and it's really fun. So you can, you know, you can go wild and change like every single one of these motifs to a different color. This is your place to play. But this is a lovely one, so it's a pretty quick knit, just that little bit of detail, and it is all knit in the round. So the inlay, so someone said they were doing one of the socks. There are a couple of different techniques. Hi Ruth. A couple of different techniques used in the book, but I do a lot of tutorial videos so that you should be able to do these patterns at home. But of course with the knit along, it's really nice of you can ask for help in kind of our chat section. So maybe you're worried about tension or it's not looking quite right. You can always ask for help, and I will be there to answer. And there will be loads of other knitters, some of who are joining, who have done this technique with me. Maybe they've taken a workshop, and I'm sure everyone's gonna be super supportive and happy to help. But this is a great one if you've not done rovelsingminne, because it's on a bigger gauge, so it's quite quick to knit. Allison's like, I love the idea of using more than 2 different colors. Yeah, I mean, now I'm kind of tempted to do one like that. How many things I can knit? Decisions. But yeah, it would be really fun to just like mix it up, kind of like, you know, it's a nice way of, if you've got leftovers of like commemorating different projects within each of those motifs, that could be quite fun. Or just like a patchwork. I might have to make another. I keep hemming and hawing what projects to do because I love all of them so much, which is great. But yeah, so you can play around. So this is the kitty, which is the one that is on the cover. So I'm going to pop that back on the rack. Aha! Allison, do a 3rd color. Not that we're influencing you at all, but like, someone needs to do a 3rd color. You can join Harriet, who is in the knit along, who's doing 3 colors, and it looks really cool. And I have slight FOMO, but that's okay. I will probably knit another one. So it said, fiber on. I'm going to take the Mara and use a gray, my canvas, and then use 3 to 5 of Mo held at least double or not triple. Oh, that's gonna be so gorgeous. I'm gonna quickly show what the Mara looks like since I read out your comment, just so the people who are watching don't go, what sweater is she talking about? This one. That's gonna be so beautiful. Oh, I love it. So many great ideas. Right. I'm gonna carry on going in order. I will try and model some of these things so you can see beyond just the gorgeous photos in the book. So the next one is Brockel, and that is actually my great grandmother's maiden name is Brockel. Let me grab it from the rack here. This is a really lovely shawl. This is actually something that uses the rovelsingminne inlay technique, which is probably my favorite. Been doing a lot of interviews for magazines and stuff lately. And everyone goes, what's your favorite technique? And I'm put on the spot, but yes. So the inlay technique, so as we saw on Giri, is usually done in the round. So kind of in target style, so you'll see it's just in certain segments, not repeated like stranded color work. But for this book, Kindred Knits, I have done a few of them where it is worked flat. But this is done so that it looks nice from both sides. So this is the wrong side, and this is the right side. Looks equally as nice on both. So a nice kind of reversible knit, which is great for a shawl because depending on if it's windy out and you just want to roll it up, so I tend to wear mine a bit like this. It's not that cold where I am. I'm in just outside Washington DC in the States, but I tend to wear mine like this, sometimes draped over my shoulder, depending on what I'm wearing. But this is inspired by a bit of embroidery done by my great grandmother, which I don't have on me, but is in the book. I wish I could travel with more things, but this lovely piece of embroidery. So taking those bits of texture, so we've got some seed stitch in there. If that is overwhelming to you, you can just do some garter stitch or stockinette. I like having a little bit of texture in between those stripes. So this is done completely flat. So you are starting up here at the top and it grows down to the point. Try and stand back there. And you've got these stripes of inlay. These are done with 2 contrast colors here. Now, as I said, with the kitty sweater, you can narrow that down to just 1 contrast color if you want. You can mix things up. This is your place to play. And this is knit with a 4-ply fingering weight for kind of my main color, my canvas here. This is in kind of a beige, like a light beige. It looks a little bit more yellow on the screen than it is in person. And then my inlay here, it's going to look a little bit different to the giddy. Let's see if I can do this side by side. So this is done with 2 strands of worsted held together, and this is a single strand. And this works because my main color is a 4-ply fingering weight, and this is worsted, so it creates the same effect as this double-stranded. So this is done, yeah, with 2 strands of 2 colors of a contrast in a worsted weight. And this is done with one of my favorite 4-ply fingering weight yarns, which is Retrosaria Rosa Pomares Mondine. I love this yarn. It's so hard wearing. It's a soft for a rustic yarn. It's a lovely Portuguese yarn. And then I used for the contrast here is Wool Dreamers Mota. What I will recommend, and I always say this when I do workshops, and if you are planning to take part in the knit along and maybe you're feeling a little unsure about knitting skills, I have a couple of workshop dates coming up this month. Sorry, we're still in December. It's not quite yet January. In January in the States. So if you are on the East Coast of the US, I will be teaching in Philadelphia and New York towards the end of January on some of the techniques used in the book, so you can check that out as well. I'll be in Europe, be teaching in March. February is kind of my month off. So what I will say, usually I always say this in my workshops, and I will probably pop it in on the knit along, is when you're doing the inlay technique, which is called rosimina or rosimina, I tend to recommend, especially if it's your first go around, is to use a non-superwash yarn. They're a little bit more forgiving. Also, all the traditional stuff, which I use as a lot of inspiration. These patterns in this book were not inspired by necessarily like traditional Estonian knits. They were all inspired by my grandmother's sketchbooks and some of the knits done by my great-grandmother. So paying homage to our Estonian heritage, but also family, crafting love and passion. But I tend to recommend the non-superwash for this technique as it's more forgiving with the tension of your floats. That being said, you still can do a superwash, which we will get to these in a moment, but the non-superwash tends to help. So when you're looking at yarns, stickier yarns are a little bit easier, but you can do everything with all types of yarns. This one, I would recommend using that thicker weight for the contrast because it will make your life easier when you're managing the tension of the floats doing this flat. So this also, one of the lovely things about rosimina inlay is it doesn't use a lot of yarn, so it's great for those mini skeins or leftovers. So if you've got some leftover worsted weight kicking about, great use. It's also good if you wanted to do, say, a single color. This would work well for this particular pattern. I'm going like, do I have a skein of that sitting by me? No. This could be fun to use if you wanted to do a single color. Maybe I'll inspire someone to do this for me. You could use a really fun color changing yarn. So this could be a great way of playing with a skein, such as like a spin cycle, where those yarns tend to be in about 50-gram skeins. So you'd have plenty, and you could just do one contrast color and let each of those stripes kind of fade into different colors going along. Or if you're using leftovers, each of those stripes you can change out which two contrast colors or just do a single. So lots of room to play with in all of these patterns. You can get as kind of creative as you want. And maybe all of you will inspire me to make 5 million more samples of the same pattern, which is not a bad thing. I'm kind of now going like, oh, maybe I should do a spin cycle one of this. Yes, Allison's like, oh, spin cycle would be amazing. Yeah. So this is one where I would say spin cycle would work really nicely. And you can just let the yarn do a lot of the talking for you. So like a solid with a color change like spin cycle. Lovely. If you were to use that, I would recommend something like Dream State, which is their worsted weight, and then pick your favorite 4-ply fingering weight yarn for your main color. So yeah. Gonna give you guys all the ideas, and then I'll need to find more time to knit some myself. Right, so the next one in the book is the Batid socks, which I will grab next to me. These are inspired, and I do have these on me, by a pair of little slippers. These are from Muhu, which these type of shoes or slippers are called Batid. And I do have a pair that fits me now because I have a set of national dress from Muhu, but these are little baby slippers that my great aunt Morat bought for me. And if you take a workshop with me on My Estonian inlay knitting, you will often see these, whether it's an in-person one, good to see, photograph, touch them, or a virtual one. I always show them, but they're beautiful floral embroidery. That inspired these lovely socks. Plus there is a slipper version. So the socks, oh yeah, someone said, anyone think Alex's February just disappeared in knitting new samples? Probably. I am trying to maximize the time, holiday time knitting. I might be knitting new samples, but probably also knitting new designs. So it's trying to find that happy balance in between. But definitely. This pair of socks, this is probably one of the most like gorgeous socks I have ever designed and knit. And I had loads of test knitters who are absolutely fabulous, and I'm so grateful for them for testing this. They loved knitting, and they're like, these are the most pretty socks I've ever made. And I will say, super easy to make, deceptively easy. So they look harder than they are to knit. So you're only knitting, lovely joy of Rosy Moon, you're only knitting with your main color yarn, and those contrast colors you are cleverly weaving, which, as I said, loads of tutorial videos for. There are written descriptions of how to do the techniques in the book, but I always do video tutorials because I'm a very visual person, so I like to be able to see what's happening. And I use videos too, so you can pause, start, pause, start. Allison said, those socks are so pretty, and I definitely inspired my color choices for Kitty. Yeah, so this is a mix of both superwash and non-superwash. So my base yarn is from Crafty Jacks. It's a lovely non-superwash, no nylon sock yarn. She's done an amazing job making this base. And then the contrast colors are from Goigo. So these are two Canadian yarn brands, but Goigo is quite special in that they are Canadian Estonian like me. So we share a lot of the same kind of family history. This is another one where, yes, I have used 3 contrast colors in addition to my main color. But again, you can simplify this down to 2 contrast colors, 1 contrast color. Make it work for you. I am someone who's a fan of high contrast or a good level of contrast, because when you're doing fun techniques like this, you want to be able to show it off. So this is quite stark contrast. This is all using sock yarn, so a nice 4-ply fingering weight yarn, and this is done toe up. I tend to do a lot of socks cuff down, but it's done toe up, so you can kind of adjust your patterns as you go along, and they're just worked on the front of the sock. So they are super pretty. So yeah, this is also a nice one if you wanted to use a color changing yarn. That could be quite cool as well, and really good for using minis. So all of my contrasts here are done with tiny mini skeins that were like 10 to 20 grams, and that will do you. So good use for leftovers and minis. And because not all of us want socks, actually I'm a fan of slippers. My grandmother loved slippers, and there are loads of photos in the book of some of the clippings from magazines that she had. There were a lot on slippers. They're practical. And I'm trying to see if we have, I know I've put some in there. Here they are. So yeah, this is from an old German magazine, but yeah, slippers. They're always good, and good at this time of year in winter. So again, these are also done toe up using a slightly modified version of this chart, partly because this is done with a 4-ply fingering weight, smaller needles, and this is done with DK. Now I have paired this with mohair, partly because the DK that I used, it is a Gotland wool, which is hard wearing, but I added mohair, which gives it a little bit of softness and warmth, but it also helps for the wear of the slippers. These are also nice in that the sole of the slipper is done in garter stitch, so it gives you kind of a little bit of traction, like treads, so you won't be slipping and sliding quite as much. And so yeah, we've got a DK plus a mohair for our main, and then for the contrast, I've got two here. This is DK, again, 2 strands held together. If you want to do a single strand, just bump that up to a kind of chunky, bulky weight, and that will give you the same effect. Yeah, everyone's like, ooh, slippers. There's so many possibilities. These are great, lots of possibilities to play with yarn. They also make good gifts. So if, I know we've passed Christmas, but like if you need a birthday gift knitting in advance, yeah, grandkids would love them. They're really fun to make, and they don't, you know, it's about the same amount of yarn as kind of like a hat-ish. So, you know, you can play around. You can also do this without the mohair. I would say if you want to use a DK, no mohair, just make sure your DK, I would probably lean on the rustic side and a high twist just to make it hard wearing. I mean, this is not the kind of sock, kind of slippery thing that you're going outside on a hike. This is kind of, I'm lounging on the sofa, knitting, binge watching something, or listening to an audiobook or a podcast type of thing. But, you know, the mohair I've added just gives it a little fun fuzz and helps with the wear. So yes, favorite yarn for the slippers. I don't know. This is done, so this is the Grey Sheep Co. Scotland, plus I held it with, I think the mohair, if I remember, it's in the book, is an Isager silk mohair. There's so many options. I'm a fan of kind of non-superwash, but I think you could do this, would be nice in a superwash yarn with a mohair. So there's too many DKs in the world, Hyatt. I couldn't pick one. I kind of go a lot based on feel and color when I pick yarn. Yeah, Allison's like, bed socks, slippers. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, this is a fun one if you want to rifle through stash, because it's about a single skein of 100-gram skein of DK will do you a pair, I think, if I remember correctly, and some mohair. So yeah. What about Les Garçons British DK? Ooh, yeah, that would be a good choice. I would probably pair that with some silk mohair would be really nice. That yarn I have used for a hat, the Orav hat and vest, which we will get to. But yeah, that would be a nice combo to do. So let's see. I'm trying to keep track of time, but I'm loving all the questions. Such a good way to try different color combos without knitting a whole sweater. Yes, absolutely. So yeah, I would say the accessories are a good way of playing with yarns. Maybe you're contemplating using that for a project. It's a nice kind of way to dip your toes in, so to speak, without fully committing. So the last of the Ravelry patterns, I might put this on for you. We'll see how much of a fashion show we're going into. Is the Ravelry cardigan, which is one that I have been wearing a lot, taking around. This is also another pattern that is knit flat. So it's actually knit sideways. So you knit the cardigan. I'm going to take it off the hanger. We'll do a little bit of fashion show. So you knit this one actually sideways. So starting from the front, working towards the side, the armhole, then you work across the back and back to the front. The ribbing is picked up from the base, and you will have a very, very tiny amount of seaming, super tiny amount, which is just at the shoulder seam, which will make your lovely armhole. And then the sleeves are picked up and you knit from the body down to the cuff, which makes it really nice in terms of planning how long your sleeves need to be. I like to try things on as I knit because it's hard to gauge sometimes. Is the sleeve long enough? So this one is done all in a worsted weight yarn that is for the contrast as well as the main. Now you will be using one contrast color is just for knitting, and the other two contrast colors are used for the inlay. So I'll show this up to you. So I've got my green and my yellow are knit with, and then the rust and the light gray. What's nice is the pattern looks nice from both sides, so technically you could wear this inside out. I did not put buttons on the other way such that I could button it that way. It does have a little collar, kind of a little flared collar. This needs a little bit of a steam. This has been in my suitcase. So this is a really fun knit. I tend to wear it mostly unbuttoned, so kind of jacket style. This is fun. You can play around. Again, this is using our contrast for the Ravelry inlay doubled. If you wanted a single strand, use a bulky there, but you can play around with your colors. This could be simplified down as well to like buy down one contrast color, but it breaks it up. You're only using one color at a time in the inlay, so it's nice and easy. That could be fun if you wanted to use a color changing yarn in there. I have thought about it for a second in there. But that's a really fun one to play with yarns. It's also done because it's on a worsted weight. It's done at a larger gauge, so I believe it is done. Quickly check the book. It is done with a 4.5 millimeter or a US 7. So again, a nice larger gauge, so it is quick, kind of a fun, interesting knit because it is done sideways, and that is done sideways so that you get these lovely panels falling vertically. So it is knit going that way, but it sits nicely on the body, and it's a fun knit. So that is the Ravelry if you want to make that. Then try and do this. Go as I am. And I do have videos on how to do the inlay flat. It is not hard to do at all because you're just knitting with your main color yarn and it's only dealing with one contrast color floating at once. It's quite easy to keep track of, and you can kind of spot where you are in the pattern. So it's easier than stranded color work. Right, pop that there. The next one, we're gonna move from our inlay into some lovely textured twisted stitches, which in Estonia are called vikkel stitches. So we're gonna start off with the orav hat. Put this on. This is actually in Les Garçons British DK, and this is in the colorway named after me, which is called Alex's Red Squirrel Friend. I'm gonna try and put this on. So a nice beanie or toque if for my Canadians watching. And this one is actually really nice if you are interested in the following pattern, which is the orav vest, because they use the same gauge. So if you wanted to make the vest, which I will show you up close, you could knit the hat first and kind of have it as a wearable swatch, so to speak. So you can wear your swatch instead of just knitting it and having a cute little square. So this is the same yarn, you can see. Ta-da! And this one, I love the texture. This is based on a vest that my grandmother Hia knit for my grandfather Hari. She used this beautiful twisted stitch pattern all over. I have broken it up a little bit with some kind of plaits that are done with twisted stitches, and then we've got some double seed here just on the sides. And this is all done in the round. All of the orav patterns are done in the round, so you're staring at your lovely texture as you're knitting. This is one that I would recommend a solid or a heather yarn. So you could do a speckle. I would say something that's not like lightly speckled probably. So you want the yarn to work with you and not detract from all the work you're putting into it. So wearable swatches should be a thing. Yeah, I think they should be. So yeah, this can be your wearable swatch, and then you can be like me and have a matching set. Or you can use two different yarns. Up to you. But this is done using twisted stitches with pairs, so it looks like it's cabled. No cable needle needed. There are videos on how to do this. These are done with Les Garçons British DK, so a nice rustic DK. So I recommend anything that's got really good stitch definition for cables. So generally lean towards solids and heathers. You can use superwash, non-superwash, like, so whatever takes your fancy. I would recommend using not a super dark color unless you have really good lighting and you can see what you're doing. So this is done in a lovely, this is like one of my favorite colors, hence why it's named after me, a nice kind of coppery color, and that shows off that texture really lovely. But the cardigan version, which I will pop on for you, because that's a little bit easier than me like constantly dressing and undressing. This is the cardigan version, which is done in John Arbon Textiles Yarnadelic Sport. So this one is done in a slightly smaller gauge than the vest, so the hat is not quite the wearable swatch for it. This is done with a heathered yarn, so you can see this copper flecks. It still works really lovely, great stitch definition on this. So I would recommend something that is a rounder yarn. So I wouldn't use a fluffy yarn because you're not gonna get the texture, it's gonna soften that, and you want something that's got really good stitch definition. I'm not gonna bother to unbutton this, we'll go fast, but you can see that lovely stitch pattern here. Then you've got this like braid, and that braid's gonna kind of sit right at the end of your shoulder, and then we've got some double seed in there which will sit on the sides. round. This is done completely in the round, no seaming. It is done with the help of steeks. So there are a few patterns in the book that use steeks. They're nothing to be scared of, but it means that you can knit round, 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 round. So you're seeing the right side completely, which makes this easier. Technically, yes, this is one color. Most people think of steeking a colorwork pattern. You can steek something that is a single color. And I'm happy to give you some tips and tricks in the knit along as to kind of how I go about that. I'll be sharing loads of tricks as we go, but this is a lovely kind of, I would say it's like a heritage knit. And so this is kind of on a darker scale, showing a bit lighter on screen, but I probably, if it was me, I wouldn't knit this in black. Someone asked me, actually, Yona, who is the head of line, she's like, you could do that in black. And I was like, I'm not sure my eyes would let me, but this is a really lovely one. So I would recommend solids or kind of like a heathered yarn. So this is a heathered one, just so that it shows off that gorgeous stitch patterns that you are using throughout this, and something with a really nice kind of round, good stitch definition. So that is the Orav cardigan. So that goes in the kind of Orav series. I'm just cognizant of time, so I'm gonna move along a little bit quicker. If you have questions or comments, do shout out, pop them in the comment section. So the next one is called Duvernette, which looks like this. I'm going to show you actually two options for it. So the original sample is done in John Arbon Yarnadelic worsted, which is a worsted weight, in the color Dark Star, which is actually the one that I created with them, which is now part of their permanent collection of colors, which is amazing. So this is a really lovely, cozy sweater. Yeah, I want to make them all. Me too. And I have made most of them for the book, but I want to make them again, which is so great. This one is a really nice, comfy, cozy one. I love this. This is a good for winter time. So it's got a little bit of an eyelet situation going. So you've got basically what's like a basket weave, so some ribbing that's broken up by sections of eyelets. This is also worked top down, so you are working the fronts flat, they get joined flat until the underarm. Same with the back, but they are joined at the sleeves, and then you will work in the round for the body, and the sleeves are worked, you pick up from here, work down to the cuff. This is done with a single strand of worsted weight, but I want to show you options. We like options. So I knit this one. I had a wonderful sample knitter knit the original one for the book because I wanted to use my color, Dark Star. And then I knit a second one, and this is a slightly more cropped version. So the one in the book is kind of longer, so on me it kind of hits down towards my hip. It does have a split hem, so it's kind of like the epitome of cozy loungy sweater. This is done actually with a mohair and 4-ply fingering weight held together, which gave me pretty much a similar gauge. So this is done on a large needle. If I remember correctly, it's done on a US 7 kind of 4.5 millimeter needle. Now I've made this slightly cropped, partly because I was playing Yarn Chicken, but also it does look cute cropped. So because this is knit top down, you can make it as long or as short as you want. But yeah, I love the color of this yarn. It is naturally dyed with, I believe this one is done with madder, and yeah, it's a lovely coral. She didn't have enough for me to do the full length, so I cropped it slightly, but it is lovely. And this is, you can see that lovely eyelet, and so it's got a little bit of a mock turtle. You can make it taller if you want because you pick up to knit the neck, so you can make it crew mock, full turtle, whatever you'd like. This is a way of doing this. So this does have a mohair with a 4-ply, which gave me roughly the same gauge. So if you want something, this is a lighter weight than the original, which is a single worsted. So you can play around with your yarn choice in that regard. This is also a way of, you can see, light colors versus dark colors. Again, I would use something that kind of works with having texture. So make the yarn kind of help you out a bit. Someone asked, looking ahead at the Giri pattern and see that the rosima starts flat and then later in the round, is it going to be difficult to switch? No. It will not be difficult to switch. You will finish one chart that is written for the flat section, and then where it starts picking up in the round is at a fresh motif. It should not be hard. It's just a small bit just to shape your neck, and because it's a small motif, you shouldn't have an issue following. Oh, someone's making the batik. Oh, can I also take part in the cowl knitting the batik or the? You can do both or one of each, any of the patterns in the book. So yeah, so this is Duvernette. So you can go have fun with yarn combos for that. And then that kind of rounds up the section of kind of textured knits. We're going to move into our stranded color work. I'm going to peel this off and grab the next one in the book, which is the Rendaya cardigan, which is actually the project that I have cast on for the knit along. So that is this lovely cardigan, which is stranded color work, but done so that it color blocks. So you've got 4 quadrants. It's the same flower pattern, but your main color and contrast color will swap as you go around the body. I absolutely love this one. This is steeked, so same steeking situation as the Orav cardigan. You have a steek running here in the front, the obvious spot, and then there are steeks actually for each armhole, which means that this is done completely in the round, seamless, which is really great for stranded color work. And this one is actually knit from the hem up just because it worked nicely for the pattern. I'm going to unbutton this and put this on for you. This is the one I'm actually doing, and I'll give you a little sneak peek of that. We're going to try and rush through all of the patterns really quick because I realize it is rushing by. This one is written also to use ladderback jacquard, which you'll see on the inside. These stripes, which help to catch floats. You can also do this just manually locking floats. So depending on your choice, this is done with what I describe as a heavy 4-ply or a sport weight. So there we go. So I'm actually doing this for the knit along, but I am modifying it. I'm actually going to do this as a sweater version. So I'm taking out this central steek, which I am documenting and I'm putting in the knit along. So if you would like to do this as a sweater instead of a cardigan, you can follow along with what I'm doing. So I'm doing it in, let's see if I can stretch this out a little bit. That's how far I am. 2 shades of green. This is in some lovely yarn from Hillesvåg that I got on my trip to Norway last month. This one is done in Magpie Fibers quartet fingering, which is technically more of a sport, and it is a superwash, and I will say you can steek a superwash yarn, so do not be afraid of that. Someone asked, how can I get the Orav cardigan pattern? So all the patterns that I am showing you today are available in Kindred Knits as an ebook or the hardcover book only. So I am doing, this is my current project. We'll see how many I do during the knit along, but I am doing it as a sweater. This is the inspiration and for the whole pattern. So I made it a cardigan for the book, but I decided let's mix things up. So I'm doing a sweater one. So that is that. Then the next one in the strand of color work, which we had a very brief viewing of, is the Moret, which is a lovely stranded color work pattern. This is based on a original knit for my great aunt Moret, and this one is done with a saddle shoulder, which I do love the fit of, and is done so you've got buttons that run along the shoulder. Try and get this off quickly. Hanger doesn't want to participate. Right. So this has buttons so you can open the neckline, which is lovely. This is done in Tukul DK, which is lovely to knit with for color work. Try and pull down my turtleneck underneath. So you've got buttons along here. These do actually open, so you can open the neck and make it a little bit more like a boat neck. I have a better video of doing this than I am doing at the moment for you, but you can open it into like a wider boat neck or have it as a full turtleneck. And I saw someone was going to use loads of different colors in this, which would be amazing. This is done in just 2 colors. This is, so you start from the top down. The colorwork section is done fully in the round. You do have some steeks here for the armholes because that will make your life a lot easier doing color work in the round. Most people have a better time with the tensioning there. So I said, since it's superwash, yes, with superwash yarns when I'm steeking, I always recommend a sewing machine. So using a straight running stitch with a sewing machine, but I will pop in some photos for the knit along of what my steek pieces look like. I always bring them also to workshops too, so yeah. So that is the Moret, and then that kind of caps off our colorwork section of the book, and then we're gonna get into the fun lace overlay. So this pattern has 2, so there's the tapped hat and then the matching mitts, and I will say this is probably one of the ones that I have worn the most. I'm just going to take this off because it is roasting. I'm wearing it. Lovely Moret, but it's too hot for her, so just pop her to the side. So the tapped hat, this is the hat, and I have the mitts here. I have been wearing these constantly this winter. So again, great use of DK and some mohair in your stash. And this is my approach of doing lace. I love the look of lace, but it's not something traditionally that I would pick up to wear myself. My grandmother loved lace. She knit a ton of lace shawls. This is one of hers, which actually uses roughly the same pattern. There you go. Try and do this so you can see the inspiration. So this is a way of showcasing lace in a slightly different way than what we're used to seeing in shawls, which are lovely, but they're not necessarily things that I personally would gravitate towards wearing. I like kind of more graphic patterns, and this kind of provides a way of showcasing the lace with a background to make it pop. So the hat, so it's kind of double layered. You essentially knit a DK hat, turn this inside out. So solid DK weight yarn from the top down. You knit for a brim that folds over and joins, and then you knit the lace hat up to the crown and they join at the top. So lovely there. These mitts, you knit basically the base of it first. There are clever purl bumps placed in so that you then pick up along an edge indicated by purl bumps, and you knit this joining on either side. So, and these lace patterns are very simple. They're all yarn overs, knit 2 togethers, SSKs, and knit stitches and purl stitches. Very simple, small, but super effective. It makes something that's really pretty. So we need to swatch the lace pattern in there. So you will need to swatch the lace pattern. There are instructions on how to swatch it, like a chart for it. These are done flat. This lace is done in the round. I do recommend swatching for it because you need to make sure that it is on gauge, because your lace needs to be stretched, and I do recommend blocking said swatch because you want it to be accurate when you measure. No disappointments. We don't want that. But that is a really fun one to play around with yarn in your stash. So that is the Bat Beads hat and mitts. And what I will say is I had enough of, this is using Sonder Yarn Co. From Montreal, and I had enough of the mohair as well as the DK to do the hat and the mitts. So you can make a matching set with one skein of DK and mohair, so which is really nice. Then let me just check which order I had these in the book. We'll try and run through. Right, 2 patterns left. I promise we're almost there. And then I'll just remind you the details on how to join. One of the last ones is Il Marina. I'll show you a better photo. I am not going to put this one on to model because it's going to be very challenging for me to do that quickly, but it looks like this. And this uses the mohair for this lovely lace section that looks like kind of fishnets. So this is knit from the top down. You work your lace sections, which are done on the front and the back, and this finishes before your boobs on your chest, so you will not be flashing anyone, I promise. And then it is worked the rest of the body, and the sleeves are done in a 4-ply fingering weight, and you have just kind of nice simple stockinette. So you work the body first, and then you will be picking up the sleeves to knit from the shoulder down to the cuff. So you can adjust for sleeve length. I am actually, if I have time, that will be my second knit. That one is a really nice, you say, the lace overlays and all of the lace patterns in general in the book are really nice ways of using, if you want to go really all out luxe with your mohair, or you have a special single skein of mohair sitting in stash, it's a really nice way of showcasing it. So if I have time, this will be for another Il Marina, which I'm actually going to do with short sleeves. So I will not knit the full length sleeve. I have a friend who is a test knitter, Beverly, who made a short sleeve version. I need to get a photo so I can share with all of you. But this is a special skein of, it's actually a cashmere lace weight, which I have a very small amount, but you don't need a lot for Il Marina, so I'm pairing it matching colors. This is Magpie Plume and Magpie Fibers Swanky Sock. So I may make a short sleeve version, which would be great for spring, summer, and also if you want to, it's a nice one that can be dressed up. If you want something slightly dressy, this is kind of one that can be dressed up or down. And then the last one in the book, which is one of my favorites, and was actually one of the last ones that was knit, which I knit, so I do have sample knitters who help me out too, is Pizzilina, which is a cardigan jacket, and this is done so it looks like you have a lace weight, like a lacy triangular shawl draped over your shoulders. And this is done in Isager, their Jensen, which is the base, which is a DK weight, kind of a rustic DK. So this is Pizzilina, which means lacy in Estonian. And then the lace, this is actually not in silk mohair, but you could do it. This is Alpaca 1, which is a lace weight alpaca. So all of the lace overlay, you do not have to use a silk mohair for it. It just needs to be a lace weight yarn. So it could be a lace weight alpaca. Someone asked, oh, I have a skein of Kiviot. Yes, I have a skein of Kiviot too. And all of the lace patterns would be a great way to showcase your Kiviot. because you need maybe 20 grams at most. So you could showcase something that's special in your stash that you bought one of. Speckled mohair, kiviot, alpaca, you know, whatever, you know, a lace weight cashmere. You can go wild. It's just a little bit, but it gives it a chance to be the star of the show. So yeah, kiviot would be amazing. So I know I've just gone over an hour, so I'm just gonna quickly wrap up. Thank you all so much for joining. If those of you who've watched and are now like, I want to do one of the patterns, or all of them, you can join me and dreaming of how many patterns I can knit. I would love to have you in the knit along. So it's starting today. As you see, I have cast on one. I now have ideas for more because I've got kiviot in my stash, so maybe I need to use it. The knit along will be running until March 22nd. To take part, you just need to sign up on my website, which is my name, Aleks, Aleks-Byrd, BYRD.com. Mostly so that you get emails with some tips and tricks that I'll be sharing, access to how to find the Ravelry group, which is where we will mostly be chatting and sharing kind of progress as we go along. There will also be 2 Zoom sessions, which will be recorded. One which will be on January 18th. Sorry, I'm just looking at my other screen to check. Which, depending on what time zone you're in, will be at 12 p.m. Eastern time for those in the US on the East Coast, 5 p.m. GMT for the UK, and 7 p.m. if you are in Eastern Europe, like Estonia. That will be kind of just like a check-in progress, and you'll be able to see some of the other Cal knitters in person on video, and I can answer questions on the spot. And then we will have a celebration Zoom on the final day of the knit along on March 22nd, which will be roughly the same time, so 12 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. GMT, and 7 p.m. Eastern European time. That is all on the website. When you sign up, you will get emails about the Zooms, access to recordings, all of that jazz, and you will be entered into the prize drawing where 4 lucky, randomly selected knitters for the knit along will win one of the 4 prizes. The main thing also, besides signing up, is making sure you've got a copy of the book, so you can get that from your local yarn shop. Most of them carry the hardcover. You can also get the hardcover from Lina, who've published the book, from their website directly. I think they have it on winter sale for the holidays. They also sell an ebook, so if you prefer to work digitally, Lina's the only one who have the ebook. So I think it's Knit Companion friendly, but don't hold me to that because I'm not 100% sure, but you can get it there. That is the only way to get access to all of the patterns in here. And yeah, that's everything. I will be saving this, so if you've got further questions or you want to share what projects you are thinking of knitting, feel free to comment on the post for this video and I will try to answer some of your questions. But until then, happy knitting and happy holidays. Bye everyone.